Hey guys, in this video we're going to be going over functions, and in this one I'm going to switch back to Visual Studio Code just to keep things interesting. Obviously, the disadvantages are, for doing a small thing, you probably use try OCAML, but disadvantages here is that when you have an expression, you have to explicitly type print int or print string. Obviously, I don't know if I explicitly mentioned this, but print int, print string, when you run the program, it'll print in the terminal below. So if I write like print, that is the terminal. If I write like print int 5, then it'll, if we do this, gotta compile it, using some similar format like here, it'll print out 5, and if I just write 5, nothing will happen. So that's the difference, and of course we have to compile and run everything. So today I'm going to go over functions. So what is a function? Very simple. Takes an input. This is your function, right? Your function, f of x, remember from math? It gets you an output. So input to output. And we have to figure out how to get there. So for this one, we're going to continue with our lovely calculator example, and we'll build a function for our calculator such that we multiply two numbers and we pass in we pass in the two variables and we print out the product. Or we print out the product. All right. So here's the general syntax. So we say let calculator. I think that's a good one. Calculator. We'll say input 1. Well, input 1. Okay. There we are. Int. And I'm going to explain all of this in just one moment, but let's just have it run, and we're going to have a good time with this one. So input 1, we're going to output an integer, and hey, we're going to say x, input 1 times input 2, and of course that's a function, and then we say print int calculate. I don't have to put it in parentheses. 3 times 5. So our calculator is going to take in two numbers and print out the product. So 3 and 5 in this case. And hey, 15. Alright, awesome. So what just happened? We took 3 and 5, we put it to our function, and it gave us 15. But how? So here's a general format for a variable in or a function in OCAML. So we say let calculator, just like we did with our variable. So let calculator. So this is our function name, and then we write out our inputs. So what do we want to have? We want to have the two integers that we're multiplying. So we have input 1, and we surround it in parentheses just for the purpose of readability. It gets a little confusing if you don't. And I also think it's required. I think it is required. Just do it to be safe. I'm not too sure on the top of my head. We say input 1, which is of type integer, input 2, which is of type integer, and we return an integer, and here's our function body. So when we create functions, it's a great idea to declare its types. So we have integer, and then when we finish doing these parameters, we have this colon integer out here, or int, that just says we are going to return or output a type int. And this is just like a variable where it's just a longer name for a variable, and then we say equals input 1 times input 2. And of course, since it is in OCaml, functions are variables in a way, we have to end it with this double semicolon declaration. And then down here we say print int calculator 35 double semicolon. Just like math, we evaluate what's in the parentheses before moving on. So we do 3 times 5, get a result, print the integer, 15. You can leave these out. It's not that good of an idea. OCaml can figure out what's going on, but it's a good idea. We'll get to that in future videos where you really shouldn't leave it out. It's just for readability for the person, maybe not you, but someone else who reads your code to understand, hey, what's going on? What's input 1? What's input 2? You don't really give me any kind of indication, and we say we're doing two types. Another side note, again, if you're from another programming language, you do things very differently. This is how you might do things. you say, you know, this is absolutely the wrong way, but this is how you do in other programming languages. This, yeah, it's not going to compile. It's going to give you errors. You really don't do this. You separate your parameters with different parentheses, like here. So not necessarily commas, but different parentheses and expressions right here. So with that in mind, let's go over another thing you might want to do in a function. So, alright, I want to, in my calculator, not only do I want to do the product of two numbers, I'd love to add 1 to the result. So, instead of saying input 1 input times input 2 plus 1, let's just keep a variable, like we learned last lesson, to keep track of our product. So we say let product equal input 1 times input 2. And, alright, that's cool. And then we say, hey, guess what? Let's just return product plus 1. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but when we say let something equal another something, that's a command. And there's no necessarily, like, there's nothing to return. There's no return type. There is, but it's complicated. We'll get to the next video, or not the next video, future video. We kind of declare something, so nothing's returned. But when we say product plus 1 without any other reference, or like no print int, basically calculator, as we mentioned, its return type is integer. So this is the final expression, unless it's like a let or a print int or something. That'll be our integer that we return, and then we return it and we print int. And this should be double semicolons. Oh no, it's not. Anyway, this is wrong. This is wrong. You'll have no idea why it's wrong, but let's just try to compile. Oh, by the way, if you get this, like, it's like stuck here, your prompt isn't turning up, just hit Control-C and it'll fix it. So we're going to run to an error, and we do. Line 2, characters 37 to 39. I think they're right here, yeah. Or something. So what's going on here is that we define a variable, but we have to consider something called scope. Scope's a little hard of a concept to understand right now, but essentially, if you're making variables within a function, you have to put the words in, and everything will work out fine. Again, we'll understand. Oh, still syntax error. Let product equal input 1 times input 2 in line 2. Remove that. Oh. I didn't expect that to happen. Okay, so I guess I had to remove these semicolons, right? Yeah, these semicolons right here. Sorry about that. I guess when you do those local variables in a function, you don't have to put them. I thought you did, but you don't. Okay. There we go. The more you learn. And there you go. 3 times 5 plus 1. Return it, and there you go. So that's it for functions. See you guys in the next video.